Hey guys, in today's video I will be giving you a succulent tour as well as showing off some of the other houseplants we have inside here. Stay tuned. This is the first section of succulents that I want to go through here, and we also have a Christmas cactus and Sempervivum over here if you saw a previous video on that. I haven't made an update on these succulents here since I transplanted them last, and that was a couple of months ago I believe. So I figured it would be a good time to show off these and then as well as show you guys how everything else is doing in the other room. This planter here was made like a year and a half ago. We've got a bunch of different varieties in there. Everything's doing really well. It is a sealed container, so there's no drainage in here. So this one I have to water a little bit more differently than the other ones. I'll pretty much just give about 10% of the whole volume of this container in water every 3 or 4 weeks, mostly about 4 weeks, because I know it's going to retain a lot of moisture in the bottom of this thing, so it really doesn't need a whole lot of water at all. This one also requires a different watering schedule because it is a sealed container. I've got ogre ears, blue chalk stick, a sedum variety, and then I think an echeveria, and then some type of little like crassula in there in the bottom, as well as some native moss that I picked up from a park around here, and I just threw it into the soil. This little bit of it back here is a little browning off and not doing too hot from the transplant, but all this stuff right here is doing quite well. Kind of surprised with it so far. Here's another sealed up container that we've got some chain succulents in. This I've been taking cuttings from. I've taken multiple cuttings from it and propagated it all throughout the house. Very happy with that. It's a really cool, unique succulent right there. I don't know what the scientific name is, but if you just type in chain succulent or like watch chain succulent, you'll be able to find it. Here's our Christmas cactus, and as you can see, it is about to bloom. It is November 8th right now, so it's right on time with the blooming cycle that I usually get out of it each year. So very happy that it's thriving and doing so well, especially since it's in yet another sealed container. Guys, your succulents and plants and stuff don't have to be in containers that have drainage in them, but you've just got to make sure you adjust your watering schedule accordingly, and your plants will thrive no matter what. Stay tuned for a video on this Christmas cactus, as I'll just be showing it off as it flowers. And if you don't know how to induce a flowering on a Christmas cactus, I have a video on that, and also have a video on how to propagate that thing. This planter right here, we actually had out in our kitchen for about 2 months as a little bit of an experiment to see how these would do with like almost no sunlight, just a couple of our kitchen lights that were on for a couple hours each day. And that's why you see these echeveria stretched and etulated way out there. In fact, this one was towering so much that I think it broke off of the stem a little bit. This thing is like 6.5 inches long, 7 inches long. Lost all of the petals going up to the top. And then we're left with just one tiny little rosette up at the top there. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to leave it the way it's at. I'll like to see what gets formed up at the top of that thing. In this container here, we have crassula, echeveria, sedum, some blue chalk sticks, nothing too special. Moving on, this is a planter that I recently transplanted, as I was talking about earlier. This is one that we did a couple of months ago, and all of the different varieties are doing so well, especially these Graptosedum paraguases and the Pearly von Nurnbergs for what they were when we started. These were super tiny and are growing slowly but surely, so happy with those. Just overall, what I've been doing with this planter has been a watering every 2 weeks Instead of my typical 3 to 4 week, I've been watering this one a little bit more frequently. Since it's such a deep planter, this thing is about almost 8 inches deep. They don't have a problem with that moisture because it's dispersed and diffused throughout such a large space. Where typically if I watered my succulents every 2 weeks, they wouldn't like it too much. I get away with it in these larger planters. And in some cases, I also try doing a misting technique where I mist it once a day. I've gotten just about the same results from that. But either way, I'm really happy with the growth we've seen in this planter so far. The one thing that seems to be struggling a little bit more than the others is like these chocolate soldiers. For some reason, I can never get those to grow really well. If you don't know what they are, that's this little fuzzy guy back here. It seems like they take forever to grow, and I just don't see much change out of them. And then the growth I get is also very green, even on some of the older stuff. It doesn't really get that dark color. The best results I had on chocolate soldiers, believe it or not, were in the hydroponics when I had it, but I don't have that set up anymore. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to get those to grow a little bit better. Haven't quite nailed it down yet. We have some new dolphin succulents. A nice fat Graptosedum paraguaceae right there that's growing nice and slow and fat. That's the way you want them. You don't want your succulents to grow fast because that shows that typically they're reaching out for light or something. While it can stretch our patience a little bit, that's the way we really want succulents to grow, is nice and slow. These succulents here, you can see they've got an older stem down below it and then the little rosettes up on top. That is the product of trimming off the bottom layers of petals as these get etulated and then letting that rosette grow at the top. Just like this one here, if I were to take off all of these leaves and then let that rosette grow in a nice healthy environment where it's going to form the way it should. That's the sort of conditions that these succulents have been in. They were etulated for a little bit, and then I trimmed off all the leaves and then placed them into a well-lit environment, such as this window here. I actually really love the way they look like this, and I think in the future I'm going to try and duplicate this on a larger scale to get a bunch of them growing like that. Get a nice thick stalk down below and then the cute little rosettes up above. Really happy with the way those look. And then we have some of the smaller succulent propagations in the front of this planter. Those are cruising along. It always seems like the first half year, 6 to 8 months of your propagation's life, it always seems to be the slowest, but they do pick up with time. These flapjacks are doing really great. Has been getting bigger by the day, it seems, and we've got new petals forming on both of them. And that's kind of a newer plant that I haven't really had before, is that, paddle succulent or flapjack succulent. Really cool because it's just a larger, really fleshy, almost looks like a jade type succulent. And they're really cool to have in the garden too. If you don't have any of those, I'd suggest them. They seem to be rather hardy as well. Moving on to our Sempervivum. These are thriving. I've had these in here for, I think, just over a month. And the Gold Nugget cultivars are doing so good. They're starting to change colors. They were almost totally green when I got them in there, but now they're starting to really turn yellow and gold in the very ends of their tips. They're starting to get a little bit of gold on there. So I'm very happy to see that progress in them. And all the other Sempervivum are getting quite large too, and just growing fast. So they should be shooting off chicks in no time. I just have them under this like 600 watt LED grow light. Again, it doesn't draw 600 watts, but that's what it's meant to replace. And that does the trick. Before I move on to the next room, I want to talk about soil composition in all of these planters. For all of these planters on this side, I have a mixture of about 50% peat moss and 50% regular soil. I've found that the succulents have always loved that, and so that's what I've stuck with ever since I started growing succulents. I worked with a couple of different mixtures in the beginning and really liked that 50-50 mix of peat moss and regular soil. Moving on over to our main center here, we've got a bunch of other houseplants. A very large jade up at the top here that has been growing for quite some time now. It must be like, I would say at least 20 years old. Can't say for sure, but I know it's quite old for just by this, judging by the size of it there. We had a huge surgery on that when we got it. It was like these main stems were almost twice as long, and the whole thing was just so heavy it was tipping right out of its pot. We've got a indoor Rex begonia that I've been growing over here, and I wasn't sure if I could grow it indoors, but it's been thriving so far. That is also in a sealed container, so I've just got to watch the watering on that. I've been watering it about once every 3 weeks. Again, about 10 to 15% of the total volume of that container in water. Then some sort of what looks like a barrel cactus. I'm not really certain what variety it is or anything, but we've got that growing there. And we've got a ZZ plant that we're growing here that I have absolutely been loving. It's growing a lot faster than I thought it would because everybody says they grow quite slow, but I don't understand that. Maybe it's just because I'm used to the growth of succulents that this seems like it grows fast to me. And good old pothos wall that we're growing. We also attached it up on the ceiling. That's growing pretty quick. It's grown about, I would say maybe 1.5 feet in the last few months. In this container up here, we've got chocked full of different ogre ear varieties, some sedum, a bunch of those flapjack succulents. And then that one there is a Graptosedum paraguayaceae. That's doing real good, but it's reaching towards the window a little bit. I don't really pay any attention to this planter at all because it is way up there. So really I water that one like once every 4 weeks, I would say. Really, to be honest with you, I have been kind of neglecting a lot of these succulents. They're all living, they're all doing well, but lately I've been finding a little bit more reward in growing plants like this Monstera deliciosa, this Alocasia African mask, our rattlesnake plant with beautiful contrasting colors, Epiphyllum guatemalense monstros EP1. That's an orchid cactus right there. And just more so gearing towards different varieties of houseplants instead of just succulents. So if you guys like stuff like that, please leave a comment down below and let me know what sort of plants you might want to see on the channel in the future. Because I'm just kind of gearing more towards that side now, because succulents do require a lot of light. They don't require a lot of attention or anything, but they do need a lot of light, and all of our windows are eastward facing, and I just don't want a whole bunch of grow lights going all over the house. So that's what we're going to be focusing on this winter, is other indoor plants. I'm sure you may have noticed our aloe vera that has just exploded in growth. This thing is huge. It's almost like 2 or 2.5 feet tall, so I just recently transplanted that in a video a couple weeks ago, and ever since I did transplant it, it is blowing up. And back here we have our awesome but hidden Sansevieria snake plant and Choya cactus, a Puntia cactus planter. I have a video coming out real soon here about Sansevieria propagation via rhizome, so stay tuned for that one. So like I said, even though I am very happy with all the growth we've been seeing from our succulents, I think it's time to change gears a little bit on the channel. And besides all of the outdoor gardening we do, I want to start focusing more on different types of houseplants and varieties that we haven't really had on the channel here before. That's why I initially picked up this Monstera and the African mask, is because they just seemed so intriguing to me. Some really interesting plants. And there's so many different plants out there too that I just don't want to leave out of our realm here on YouTube. So I hope you guys are excited for that. There's going to be a whole lot of videos coming up here this winter, even though we can't get outside because the cold, nasty Wisconsin weather is here and here to stay. There's going to be a ton of stuff going on indoors. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Stay tuned and we'll see you in the next video.